Oh, today's the sprint deadline. Nice.
Yeah, hopefully we're after the submission deadline.
Oh, today's the.
Who's going to the live competition in February?
I will be there.
Nice.
Oh, you're going too, Aaron?
I live in New York now, so it's like not that
Easy.
far from me.
Okay.
Oh, maybe I should drop by if the two of you guys are going.
Stream
Yeah, man.
up now.
Oh, think about it.
Sure.
So, yeah, okay.
Okay. So I will connect this to the connector.
I'm looking at that camera. Is that the like line for pizza or something? Is that why they're all
Definitely
bunched up
free
in the
food.
back?
Definitely free food.
Yeah.
Definitely free food.
Okay, I think people are still in line for food, so
All good.
Classic.
I understand.
Yeah.
It's important.
Yeah, cool. Steven, have we met?
I don't know that we have. What
Okay.
year were you?
I won Battlecode in 2003 and then ran it in 04 and 05.
Yes, so that's definitely before my time. I won in 2011.
Oh, cool. Awesome. Congrats.
Thanks.
What are you up to these days, Steve?
These days, I'm working at Stripe. I actually recently just switched teams to
Nice.
storage abstractions.
Cool. Are you in San Francisco?
I am in the area. I'm in Mountain View right
Oh,
now.
cool. Yeah. Awesome.
Dude, come to Amplitude. We gotta have you. I wanna work with you again, man.
This isn't the first time you asked me, and the last time I said no, and that turned out to be a huge mistake. So I don't know. I'd love to catch up with you if nothing else. It's been a while since we talked.
Come by and we can hang out. Yeah.
Like the view, so that all the windows are
Have you
like
met Jeffrey before, Stephen? Or
Jeffrey?
Okay.
Jeffrey? Yeah, he's our other
Or
co-founder.
maybe like immersive.
I don't think I have.
All good.
Oh, what the? Not Hmm. Okay, we can just do this. Okay.
You guys have Twitters, by the way, or no?
What is Claire's?
Oh, Corey, you do.
Okay. Wait,
I'm the only one ship posting. It's also I'm the only one in the HVAC closet too. Checks out.
No one else does? Okay.
Okay, I think we'll get started now, if that's okay.
Yeah.
We're just gonna ask for introductions and then we'll go on to like some
You
questions.
guys drop the YouTube stream link, by the way, or
I can't hear us.
Yeah, it's in Discord announcement.
Sorry, can you guys hear
okay,
us?
fine, I got it.
Oh, yeah, I
Hello?
see it.
Yeah, we can hear you
Yep.
guys.
We can hear.
Can you hear us? They want us to.
Yes. Hello, we can
Okay.
hear
Turn what? What's up? Okay. Hi everyone, welcome to our Battlecode alum Q&A. So today we have several very cracked, very impressive people who have won Battlecode in the past, and a lot of these were MIT alums. So I think the way that this is going to work is we're first going to ask everyone to kind of introduce themselves, and then after that we'll open it up to the audience for questions. And if there's no audience questions, we also have some questions compiled on the Discord thread that we'll just go through. So yeah, I guess you can start with introductions. If everyone could maybe give like their name, what years they competed in Battlecode, where they went for undergrad and like what they majored in, and then also what they're doing now. So feel free to just go in whatever order you would like.
Cool. I guess I organized this. I'll kick it off. Hey guys, Spencer Skates. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Amplitude. So started the company back in 2012 and took it public a few years ago. Very excited to be doing this and be back so many years later. I was MIT 2010, course 20, and then competed in Battlecode in 2008, 2009, and 2010. I was part of the winning team in 2009 and 2010. So yeah, excited to hang out with you guys and spread the hype for Battlecode so many years later.
I guess I'll go next as probably the only other course 20 in this group. So
you're course 20?
graduate.
I know that. I
Yeah,
forgot.
yeah, that's right. That's why benchling. Yeah, so MIT graduated in 2012, which was the year that we won Battlecode. I had participated in 2010, 2011, finally won in 2012, and then I also dev'd for the 2013 game. Currently CEO and co-founder of a company called Spellbrush, where we work on like AI image generation alongside folks like Midjourney and co. Great to be back here as well. Battlecode was a lot of fun, and so happy to share our notes and our thoughts to all the young ones out there.
Cool. I'll go next. Hey, everybody. I'm Albert, class of, or I guess I left 2008, which was also the year that I won Battlecode. I participated every single year I was at MIT. And among other things, it helped me get my first job at a then 5-person startup called Dropbox. It was pretty cool. And nowadays, I work in kind of a new field called programmable cryptography, which is pretty neat because I was course 18 and 6 back at MIT. And this is a field that really pulls together both the software engineering side of things in addition to, I think, what we would commonly associate cryptography with, which is more of a math field. And so it's actually a pretty new field and tap into a lot of parts of my brain that go all the way back to the Battlecode days. So it's really cool to be back and appreciate Spencer for organizing this and the Battlecode devs, of course.
I'll go next. I'm Steve Arcangeli. I was MIT course 6, class of 2011. I competed in 09 and 2010 against Spencer, our chief rival. And then after he graduated, I was able to win in 2011. And I am currently in the Bay Area working as an engineer for Stripe. Aaron, you are muted.
There we go. Hi guys, I'm Aaron. I was course 18. I won Battlecode in 2003, and then I ran it for 2 years, 04 and 05. I like to think I get some credit for, I think I kind of turned Battlecode into something much more like what it is today. We can talk about the history of this competition, but I'm so like psyched about like Battlecode like nowadays. It's just amazing. It's been growing. I think like the devs are doing an amazing job, and yeah, I'm just thrilled to see it.
Aaron's too humble. You are basically the founder of modern Battlecode, where it's like legit, and there's a bunch of top talent, and you get all these sponsors that try to recruit you. So
I did come up. Again, I could tell a story about this, but I did come up with the business model of recruiting before. Like when I won it in 2003, it was completely unrelated to recruiting and sponsorship. It was and it was actually run by the ACM IEEE Club, which I don't even know if those acronyms mean anything to students nowadays, but yeah.
So our first question for you guys is from JK Supa Buddies. Since you're a past Battlecode winner, I care to ask you to impart some knowledge to the newbies, including me out here. What would be something that should come out at the end of a newbie season? And what would be some tips and tricks to optimally review a season?
The first season I did Battlecode in 2008, frankly, we sucked. We barely had a bot that could beat the reference player. And I was just learning the basics of Java programming at the time. I wasn't even course 6. Albert won that year, and that kind of inspired me to like go all in on the competition the next year. But I think understanding a bunch of the basics and just getting your bots to do stuff, like the fact that you can program a bot to like do something on screen, like that was amazing. And we didn't even know the basics of how to structure our bot. So we had like, if statements all over the place, and we didn't separate the navigation from the fighting, from the decision making, from the communication. We were just trying to get, I don't know if you guys still have the archons today, but we're trying to get archons to build stuff. And then, units to just move. And that was like a big success. And so just being able to kind of understand the basics, like to me, that was cool, and kind of just being part of it and being around other teams that were really exceptional at it.
Well, that sounds great. Does anyone else have a piece of advice for novices or newbies?
I can
I would
add
say,
something.
go for it, Albert.
Sure. I just wanted to say real quick, I probably have a maybe even extra rare perspective because I grew up at a different time where, it was very common to have not even like written any lines of code until you got to college. Not saying that never happens now, and hopefully there's even some people out there right now who are in a similar position. Because for me, like Battlecode was basically the first year I did Battlecode was basically the first time I did any programming whatsoever. And I was fortunate to be with, some teammates who obviously knew more because otherwise I wouldn't have been able to get anywhere. But I just wanted to mention that, like, really continuing on what Spencer said, Battlecode is like an amazing game. It has a very steep learning curve. And so, like, just know that a lot of people have been there where you're just trying to get your bearings at all. And I think nowadays, a lot of games and in a lot of environments, you can kind of very easily see your progress. Whereas Battlecode is not one of those games quite to the same degree. A lot of times you have to figure out several different things before it really feels like you get an unlock. So I know it's easier said than done, but just know that other people have been in similar situations where at first you feel like you're just not getting anywhere. And if you persist and keep like trying to learn and figure out, one more thing, it will unlock eventually. And so, I know there was times when I was kind of skeptical I would ever understand anything that first year. And yet, obviously, it turned into this really amazing experience that to this day is something I think about very fondly. So I just wanted to throw out that like you can really start from anywhere, and it's not really about winning or losing. Easy for a group of like winners to say that, but it truly is about like an environment that I think gives you a chance to uh, just kind of every single day figure out some new things and build on that.
So I think that's really good advice, especially for some people who are competing for the first time. A lot of them feel kind of lost, so hopefully that's encouraging advice. Anything else?
I'd just like to call out the devs here because when we were competing, the like separate newbie season or newbie tournament wasn't really a thing. And the fact that you've added that, I think, is really awesome. I think it's a really great way to encourage new people to join the competition.
I guess we can see if anyone in the audience has any questions. If you do, we have a mic here. We'll go ahead and bring it up to you so you can ask. Okay, if not, we can probably move on to the next question. Okay, let's do a question from RGHC from the devs. How is coding for something like Battlecode different to the kind of coding you do at work?
The biggest thing I'd say is actually the closest I got while at MIT to coding in the real world. And it was because like at MIT, you kind of have this, the Core 6 ladder. It's like, okay, you're solving the harder and harder algorithms problem or something like that. But most real world coding isn't about that. It's about understanding a particular problem and how can you create the best thing that attacks it. And so the fact that you had to do this multi-dimensional thing that combines navigation and decision making and communication and like a distributed algorithm and all these things. It's actually by far the most similar to building a product that I got while at MIT. Because most other experiences I found at MIT were just very on rails. It's like you have to do this particular application for this class, and there's not a ton of leeway in terms of the different ways you tackle it. Whereas with Battlecode is very much about, okay, understanding the game from first principles, and then, okay, how can you design good decision making in that context? And so, and then iterate on that, like against lots of other people. And so that it's like, yeah, it combined a whole bunch of different things that it actually made it very, very similar to like working on a startup or starting building a new product for the first time for users.
Yeah, it's very, very similar to if you're doing something greenfield, where you just need to get something out as fast as you possibly can, and it doesn't matter if it's clean or pretty, as long as it works and it does what you need it to do. It is highly dissimilar from working on an established legacy code base. Very, very different mechanically.
Okay, our next question is actually from Nicole. So has competing in Battlecode helped you with your career now? And if so, in what way?
Aaron, you're muted.
And you're muted.
Thank you. Yeah, I want to talk about, oh my gosh. So I graduated I started a company with my Battlecode teammate, David Greenspan, that was like actually kind of based on some technology that we use running Battlecode. That's like a longer story, but we did Y Combinator in 2007, and we at the time talked to Paul Graham about like Battlecode. We actually like the first conversation we had with Paul Graham, because we didn't have a startup idea, and he's like, well, what have you done before? And we told him all about Battlecode. And then that conversation turned into an idea for a startup that we ended up making. And eventually we pivoted to work on something else. But that whole time I was like pounding the message in within Y Combinator that like Battlecode people are great founders. And so like I like helped recruit Drew Houston, who founded Dropbox, to Y Combinator. Drew got his co-founder Arash. He met him through Battlecode. Arash was like a Battlecode winner. And then we have like Albert here, who went to go work at Dropbox. And then eventually I went to go work at Y Combinator as an investor, helping to like interview and recruit founders. And I was just telling all my partners, Battlecode people are like great people for us to like bring on to Y Combinator to invest in. And Spencer and his co-founder were like part of that, and Corey Lee as well. So yeah, to me, there is just such an interesting career history of Battlecode and startups. And my career has been in startups.
Yeah, I'll even tell a story. I already mentioned, it helped me get my job at Dropbox because I won Battlecode because Arash, one of my best friends in college. So that obviously helped, but Drew didn't know me. We'd met briefly once before. And I mean, literally the act of winning that competition kind of in his mind already shifted so much about what he could expect about me. I honestly thought it was kind of undeserved because I was a pretty green coder, as I'd mentioned. I only started coding, 2 years before that. But knowing what I know now, it's like, as was often the case, Drew was right about the important part, which is recognizing what this said about a person to be able to do that, do certain things in a competition. But the story I want to tell real quick is I was in the Boston area. I think it was January 2015. And I noticed, oh wait, Battlecode is, it's going to be soon. And I actually recently left Dropbox at this point, whereas previously I'd gone to Battlecode a lot just for recruiting purposes and other things. So again, the obvious career stuff is already there. But number one, I was so just I like Battlecode so much, I was like, I'm just going to swing by. And then I ran into Kyle Vogt, another MIT alum who started Cruise, one of the self-driving car company that in many ways kicked off the entire self-driving wave. Kyle was an MIT alum who, among other things, also helped connect Drew and Arash at Dropbox. That's its own separate story. But Kyle was back at MIT specifically for Battlecode, to recruit for Battlecode, because he had just started Cruise at that time. I think it was like a 10-person or maybe even less company. And I even got my own younger brother to meet Kyle because he was at MIT at the time, and he ended up joining Cruise through that. And there's a bunch of scattered things here, but there's a reason why all these different people from these different places keep coming back to Battlecode and even will make the time, today to join this conversation with all of you, which is that it's like, especially as people get older, as many of us were remarking before the call started, clearly we all have gotten older. You have less time for different things. And yet like people are making time for this because of how meaningful Battlecode is. And so there's like endless stories and specific examples of how it's relevant to a career, but also like, actions speak louder than words. And I think the action of like people taking time for this is an additional part of all of that I hope kind of helps convey the feeling that each of us have here in ways that maybe the words that we say won't be able to.
It's so funny because I remember seeing you guys up on stage, Albert, in 2008 and just being so fucking inspired. And I'm like, oh man, this thing combines all the things I love, like programming, a competition, video game. And like, if you are successful at it, like legit people, like Albert recognize that, or Aaron or Drew or, what have you. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to go all in on this thing. And then in 2009, I'll tell you guys a funny story, which is I was trying to recruit my now co-founder at the time, Curtis, to work on the Battlecode team with me, but he had already previously committed to a separate team, and he's like a very loyal guy. And so, but then like that year, nobody else on his team did any work. Whereas like myself and this other guy that we're working with, Steve, were like very hardcore about it. And he's like, yeah, I should have joined you guys. And so the following year, we're like, all right, we're going to form the dream team together. Me, Steve, Curtis, all going to come together. And we're going to go all out to win this thing in 2010. And then we ended up winning that year. And that kind of opened up a lot of opportunities in the startup space and what have you. And then when it came time to actually start a company, so I remember I pitched lots and lots of friends of mine at MIT to like come start a company, but nobody wanted to do that. Everyone wanted to do the safe path by working at a larger company or get an established career. Except the one person who said they're willing to do it was Curtis. And I was like, hey, Curtis, you don't want to miss out again like you did in 2009. Like, let's make sure to work together this time. So I'd like to think that provided a little bit of the motivation for, him and I starting Amplitude together.
Oh yeah, I would actually echo that same thing. When I was recruiting my co-founder, David Greenspan, to start a company with me, at the time, I went out to California and he was in grad school at MIT. And I was like, David, come start a startup with me. He's like, I don't know, I'm in grad school. Like that seems risky. And I remember I said to him, remember how fun it was to work on Battlecode together? We can make our startup be fun like that. And he was like, oh, fuck, that was so much fun working on Battlecode with you, Aaron. Okay, that's it. I'm leaving. And that's what convinced him to start a company with me, was the experience of working on Battlecode together.
I'll tell you guys one other funny story about how it led to career success is that so when we were out here starting the company and like we didn't know anything about what it meant to build a business or build a product or anything else. But we did have that on a resume, right? And one of the things Battlecode talks about is that hey, in addition to the cash prizes, you can get eternal glory. So we did all this work hyping it up among the venture capital community out here in Silicon Valley. And we're like, oh yeah, we won MIT's biggest programming competition and it's such a big deal. And, it's this awesome thing. And we actually had investors who legitimately invested in our startup at the time, which didn't have any users or traction or nothing, just because of that. Because it's like, all right, these guys seem like they're smart. They're like won this. They said this thing that was a big deal. And I remember we hyped it up so much that one of my other friends who was starting a company at the time, this guy named Oliver. So we had pitched this investor and we're like, oh, we won Battlecode, and he had also competed in it. And so when he was pitching his startup, they had asked him about the competition. It was like, hey, did you do this Battlecode competition when you were at MIT? And he's like, oh yeah, I did. And he's like, well, Spencer, he said he placed first. Where did you guys place? And he was like, oh, we placed 16th. But then he was like, oh, but I can do a backflip, and that's really cool. And really, you can do a backflip? And so he gets up in this large conference room at this like big table in front of all these VCs, and he he's in flip-flops, and he like does a backflip in front of all of them, and they're like, "Oh, amazing job! That's amazing. We'll invest. We'll put money in your guys' company." So it was just a it's just a funny way to just like a lot of times like people don't even know like what's a big deal or what's interesting. And so, we ended up creating a little bit of reputation around it to help us raise money for the company.
Those are some crazy stories, but it's really great to hear how much Battlecode has like helped you guys in your careers and beyond. I want to open up to questions again for the audience. Does anyone have anything they'd like to ask? You can ask about anything. Battlecode, MIT, career-related stuff, entrepreneurship. Can I ask something already? Yes. Jolie has another question.
So, what's your favorite Battlecode year, like game?
I mean, I will say, obviously everyone likes the year that they won, but then folks who devved will probably say that the year that they devved is best. So I'll have to say that it's like 2013 was the year myself and one of the other folks on my Battlecode team ended up designing the game, because obviously like, oh, we won the last year and we have some thoughts on how to make the game better in the traditional hubris style of thinking that you can do better on the design. And we had built a game where I think was quite interesting. So previously, I don't know what the design of the current game is, but traditionally, Battlecode had been more about like mobile units that could spawn other units and go around capturing points and attacking other units and capturing resources. And we wanted to make it a little bit more sort of macro heavy, to use the RTS term. So we had redesigned the game a little bit to have a bunch of stationary buildings that could do research to design a tech tree, and almost kind of like a more StarCrafty style way, because our team, we're big StarCraft fans, and actually we had met Spencer through StarCraft Club as well. And the game, I think we like to do a good job. One of the problems that we had when we were designing the game, obviously, is that there is a big advantage to just turtling, where you have a bunch of units and you just defend and try to capture a single resource and prevent other people from taking that resource the entire game. And when on a whim, in order to counter this design, we threw in as a joke in the original spec the ability to basically research a nuke, the ability to basically have a one button wins the entire game, but it takes an enormous amount of turns to research. And by adding that, the game became very entertaining, because when you started the nuke research, the other team would immediately get a notification that they were about to plow like all their resources into this like 1,000-turn nuke research. And so there was like a very interesting meta where you had turtlers who would try to nuke, and then attackers would get the signal and rush and try to destroy them. And it was a lot of fun to watch. We tried to optimize it for sort of the watchability, because we had this really cool banner when the nuke started. There would be like a little siren that went off like StarCraft style, and you'd be like, oh, team B is starting their nuke. So that's my story of 2013. We had a lot of fun building that game, but I don't know if anyone else has any has any particular memories from various years?
I would say I will not pick the year that I won to break perhaps one potential trend. Qualitatively, in the early years of Battlecode, probably the most significant thing that happened first was actually Aaron running the game and driving it into what is, I think, still in many ways the same, like spiritually the same game. That was the first really big thing because that changed the way Battlecode was seen on MIT campus, among other things. And then I would say gameplay wise, the first like sort of notable phase shift was the introduction of the Archon concept in 2007. I don't think it was kept forever. Maybe it has been. Regardless, I can, as perhaps even the only person here who both played a pre-Archon and post-Archon year, I can speak them to how that changed things, even from the standpoint of for audience members or potential sponsors or sponsors who were evaluating things. Because the big shift with the Archon was all of a sudden most units died on their own. Whereas before you could kind of just sit in the corner, spit stuff out, and guys would run around, indefinitely until they got killed. And it would really highlight the challenge of even just getting a group of things to move together. You would have like entire blobs of things that, got some balance wrong with their algorithms or their heuristics and would just like die off together. You would have groups that like really struggled to move around once more than a certain number of units were made. I think it was a bit unfortunate, and I'm glad that things like the newbie tournament got added because it definitely raised the degree of difficulty to start with the game. But conversely, it really made it a lot more apparent, like how hard it was to do certain things. So I'll point to that as like once Aaron kicked off the whole like battle code is sort of a real thing that people take seriously and put a lot of prestige towards, then you started to see the additional changes to the game that sort of helped us pull like pull out or tease out the like levels of skill that could exist with playing it. And I don't know, maybe this already exists, but I'd certainly be interested in like a history of battle code type thing that went through the types of changes, talked to the different devs and winners and other things, because there's just so much fascinating nuance and memorable stuff. Like almost 20 years later, I can still remember very clearly seeing the spec come out for the first year that Archons existed. And your brain is like, wait, did I read that right? This is how it works now. And I'm sure plenty of other people over the years have their own stories that feel like that.
Yeah, I think I have to follow that because when I started, the Archon paradigm existed as far as I had known. So I played in the Archon world and then the post Archon world. Um, so my most memorable year was the year that I won 2011, but it's not because I won, it's because they completely changed it. Everything I'd known before then was this Archons are the center of attention, they spawn everything, they move around the map. And in 2011, they just completely changed the game entirely. It became uh, previously it was you have your Archons and then there's like three different unit types that have different capabilities. In 2011, you could spawn four different types of chassis. Five. There was light, medium, heavy, flying, and building. And then there was just a slew of components. And each chassis has some capacity, and each component has some weight that it takes up. And you just build whatever robot you want given those constraints. And that just exploded the strategic space. It exploded the complexity of what you were doing. I found it to be that was the first year that I felt like I competed where you could tell that even the top teams, there was so much left undone. There was so much more that every single team could have done to their player to improve it just because there were so many areas of opportunity. And you also got to see some very disparate strategies, which was really, really cool. Um, I believe that they did not that this style quickly moved on, that Battlecode moved on from that. I will say that I think it was a lot more difficult to spectate. With the Archons, you could kind of watch one or two little groups of things, and you knew that that was where the focus was supposed to be. With this, it was just a giant spread all across the map. It was impossible to follow. So I think it's probably best that it's moved on from that paradigm, but it was really cool the year that it happened.
Yeah, I think the old Archon style plus like that old 3D JVM viewer, if that's still around, was like peak hype because like Kresge would be completely full and everyone's watching a bunch of robots blow each other up on the screen. Not sure if that engine still exists, but there was a pretty entertaining like 3D visualization where you could watch the combat. Obviously, nobody used it for debugging, but it was just fun to watch in a crowd.
Thanks for all the answers. I think it's also very interesting for the devs here to hear about how the game has changed. There's a lot of stuff that um, we find very interesting. Okay,
Appreciate you guys keeping it fresh.
of course, of course. Okay, does anyone have any questions? Okay, if not, we can move on to a question from Seba Cape from Team Snap. Do you believe that the benefits of participating in Battlecode extend beyond those who are just focused on learning about computer science and adjacent disciplines? What would you say could be an example of a potential benefit if they do exist? This is relevant as we have a bioengineering major on our team. So maybe one of the previous bioengineering majors could also give their input on this.
I mean, I'll just say yeah, Corey and I were both course 20. And I don't want to speak for Corey, but I was very intimidated by the course 6 people, which is like I should have majored in a retrospect, but I didn't. But it really did open up the tech world for me. And I think you didn't actually have to be the best programmer. You had to just think deeply about the problem in the game, and that's what made it a ton of fun. And I was used to playing StarCraft and all sorts of other RTSs, and so like there was all sorts of like little things like the Archon thing they were talking about. One of the really hard problems was, hey, how do you get them to decide to retreat at the same time? Because if one of them retreats but the others don't, like they might get killed in the fight, and you want them to like do that as a group. So how do you actually do that? Or how do you make sure they navigate around the map in the same direction? And so like those the algorithms behind that aren't that complicated, but thinking about how do you actually take how do you actually create a decision tree to make that happen, that was a ton of fun, and that kind of got me into the world and convinced me that I was capable of building a product and writing software and everything else.
Yeah, also to echo what Spencer's saying, like also was course 20. I think like retrospect should have gone 6 or some other engineering degree. Sorry to all those course 20 majors out there who are listening. But like we're working on Battlecode during those like IAP periods was some of the most entertaining times that I had at MIT. And there's a big element of like just teamwork where like we would stay late nights in my now co-founder's dorm trying to think up strategies or design algorithms for the bots, as Spencer says, to retreat simultaneously or attack simultaneously, or even like heuristics, which don't even need coding, like pure software engineering coding ability. Just like, can you come up with a metric, like maybe based on how much resources you have or what you estimate the strength of the enemy army to be, to decide do you go all in or do you retreat or do stuff, and that really is more general analytical and teamwork and hacking ability rather than just like pure computer science related stuff.
One of the biggest surprises I'll actually say about coming out and starting a company was that you don't actually need to be that good of a software engineer. Like the people at MIT would like fucking kick the ass out of anyone out here in Silicon Valley, like hands down. There's no question about it. To build the average product, it's like you can actually and this was a big misconception I had. And so, because I thought it's like, oh, if you're, you got to be one among the top MIT students, your top course 6, it's like, no. You actually don't need that much technical skills. And in fact, the sort of technical skills and the problem solving you learn in Battlecode is much, much more relevant to building products.
Do you think that was even true for Amplitude?
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, there are parts of our problem that are based around algorithms at scale because we're an analytics and data company and we process tons of data, and that's like one of the competitive advantages. But compared to like the level that you have to do that at to win in the market is a lot lower than the level you have to do that at MIT. So yeah, my big thing is don't be intimidated by folks in course 6.
Yeah.
I think you're also getting at a broader point that I think is very important, which is like we have this understandable tendency and temptation to categorize things along these very clean lines. Like, is it, more for this course or for this industry? There's even been a lot of sort of tech startup oriented conversation here. But it's almost like if you read between the lines, hearing about people talk about their Battlecode experiences, it's clear that there's more to it than what like even people are able to fully express when talking about it. And I think increasingly nowadays, I remember like how much worse, for example, the guides were for learning how to program back when even I was at MIT. And that's one of the reasons going to MIT was such an amazing place for me. Like, many things have gotten better and more legible in certain ways. And it's almost like the stuff that is between the lines that like ends up mattering as much or more. And one thing I can say with pretty high confidence is that the nature of like the Battlecode competition and the experience it puts you through, it gives you like a lot of things that you're not going to get a course credit for or can't get a degree in or so on, but add up in these like hard to quantify but important ways for other things. So like it's obviously very simplistic. I'm using words here to try to describe something that I'm saying. It can't be described in words, but there's, I guess, like the word is vibes nowadays, right? I think like look at the vibes of Battlecode as much as the sort of literal aspect of it. I think this is one of those contexts where that doing that really, really does apply. And just like Spencer thing, don't get too caught up or worried about like this, course 6, this or that. Like I would just say extend that principle to far more things. And for lack of a better way to put it, I think you can have some faith that the Battlecode experience will translate in ways that are hard to quantify, hard to predict. But like when you look back later on, you'll feel it, and maybe you'll even be better than I am at being able to describe it.
The big thing we did was just to get really intense about it. Like I got a whiteboard for our dorm room. We were in Next House at the time. And I do this thing. I'd wake up at like 10 p.m. and then like I'd go to the can't remember, India Pavilion, I think in Central Square. I'd pick up like 2 takeout cartons of like all you can eat Indian food. I'd bring that back. And then I just code from like 10 p.m. With my other teammate till midnight. And it was just like that repeat day in and day out.
Wait, I just want to clarify, you woke up at like 10 p.m. that night? Or...
Sorry, 10 a.m. Sorry, 10 a.m.
Okay.
And then would code until like, I don't know, 1 or 2 or whatever it was. So yeah.
Oh, I see. Oh, you're on the grind.
We're hardcore about it back then. So you don't have to be hardcore to do Battlecode, by the way. So by the way, I can kind of see the audience. Who here is trying to gun for one of the top spots this year? I'm curious if anyone in the audience is. Hell yeah, nice. I love it.
Yeah.
Wait, how are you seeing the audience?
There's a camera.
One of the cameras is a thing.
Bottom.
Yeah. I love it. So you could do it. You could do it at the pace you want. Whatever you want to do. It's good. It's all good.
Our next question is from Illegal Visa from Snap. As newcomers to Battlecode, what are the best strategies to overcome production ruts and effectively prevent burnout?
My biggest thing, I just get your bot doing something like, moving forward, reading your sensors and reading what's going on around you, taking an action. Like just seeing your bot go and do something like that was already that's very, very motivating, is just to see it happening. You don't need to code the perfect thing. In fact, we rewrote our code like many, many times in all the years we did it.
Yeah, I would also say similar, like don't be afraid to throw away a bot. Like the year that we won, we probably went through like 3 code bases, and we just like we wrote something for the sprint deadline, but obviously if you only have a week, like you're not going to write the best strategy, and you should be okay tossing it all out. You'll have learned stuff, and generally when you rewrite things, you tend to write it better the second time. So that's another sort of piece of advice that I'd have.
Well, thank you for the advice. Maybe we can do this other question from a dev. This is from Ruth. What is the funniest story that you have from Battlecode, or your favorite Battlecode memory? I guess either one does.
I'll go. I have a story, and this was actually a year I was running it, and Drew Houston was a competitor. And I don't know if this is still the case. I haven't read this year's spec, but in this year, robots could only communicate with each other through the physics of the world. So they could broadcast a message, which is a string. And there was an API call to like receive message, which will give you like an array of strings that like have made it into your like receive buffer. And Drew's bot would just like go around broadcasting 16 megabyte strings and never receiving anything. And so like you would see these robots just like kind of moving around. And when they got within range of another bot, it would just like stun the other bot because they're like using up and wasting all of their bytecodes processing this like 16 megabyte string. And then like you could see it would just like suddenly stop, and then like the bot would just like attack it until it dies. And this like strategy like just dominated the whole game. And that was very memorable and funny to me.
Feel like one of the other ones that remember, I think it was this, I think it was 2009. There's this guy, Daniel Whitlow, who was like the solo coding. He was a solo team member, so he was just coding by himself, and he had done very well the past year. He was like top 8 in the competition. And so one of the other top teams had sent one of their teammates over to hang out with him and distract him and try to get him to drink alcohol so that he could be able to like focus on coding. But then he was like, "Oh, joke's on them because like I always drink when I code anyway." Like, and so it doesn't even matter. So yeah, people got intense about it, which was cool.
We accidentally crashed the tournament twice because in 2011, one of the components that was available allowed you to spawn dummies, which was like a fake robot that in theory is supposed to draw fire. And we noticed that the cooldown of this was absurdly low, and there was no way to DPS through the amount of dummies you could spawn. So we figured, why don't we just have flying bots and just carpet the entire map with dummies? Not as like this is going to be a great strategy, but because this is the sprint tournament, so let's have some fun. And we caused the tournament to throw out of memory exceptions, and so it crashed, and we didn't get the tournament results until later. And then they tried to rerun it a second time, and it crashed it a second time. So apologies, past devs, but you give me a toy to play with, and I'm going to play with it.
Is the current tournament run live for the first time?
No.
Yeah, we did that.
Smart.
In 2004, we had some crashes during the live tournament. And man, that was stressful because we were like fixing code.
Yeah,
And
don't
while
do that. Run it the
running.
day or two. Run it like the days leading up to it, so you can fix that. That's
Right. So I guess in 2005 we ran all the tournaments and like recorded them to a file. And yeah.
Yeah, I guess in terms of last minute code changes, the year that our team won Battlecode, like there's the scrimmage server, so you get to see relative performance of your bot against other folks. And I think like 24 hours before the final tournament deadline, we had noticed that we were dropping matches to the number 2 seed on the tournament. And so with only like less than a day to go, I think 2 or 3 hours before the deadline, we decided to hack in a detection for just this one team, just for the number 2 seeded tournament player at the time, which was untested, obviously, because it was like a heuristic to detect whether it was their team or not, and then to just do an all-in strategy that we suspected he would be weak to, and so hacking that in like T minus like 1 or 2 hours before we had to turn everything in was a lot of fun, and it turns out it like partially worked in the actual tournament, but it worked enough to actually secure us the win. So that was a lot of fun.
One thing I will recommend for folks doing it is like, don't be afraid to scrimmage your bot. Like, I'd actually encourage you to scrimmage it a lot because, like, yeah, the more you can learn about what works and what doesn't, like, the better. I think a lot of people had this misconception. It's like, oh, I'm gonna like roll out the secret strategy at the last minute, but scrimmaging makes you better, and like that's like the dominant strategy. Like, yes, you know, it lets someone else see what's going on, but like it makes you better as well. And so the more kind of things you test out, the better, the more likely that, you know, you're going to catch something that goes wrong or is an issue or whatever else. So my big thing is just be like, I think the 2009, the first year we won it, like the first set of scrimmages, we were like 1-11. We were like really, really bad. And so it wasn't until like we started getting like a week or two in the tournament that we really figure out how it works and what the ideal sort of strategies are.
There's an analogy there to startup companies where people think that they have an idea, they need to keep it secret, but actually, like, by telling everyone what your idea is, you like learn a lot and improve it.
Yeah, by far. Because it's like either it wins and you know it's good, or it loses and you know something to fix. Whereas if you keep it secret, you never learn those things either way.
I have another question from a dev.
Okay, I have a fun question. Which Java version were you guys using back when you guys won?
Dang. I'm trying to even
I
remember.
think the game used to be based around JVM 6 bytecode, at least back when I was doing dev. So I don't know if the game is currently still the same at the moment, but it used to be like people would write their code in Java, it would get compiled down to bytecode, and then Aaron had written the bytecode interpreter, which would then count your execution time based on total number of bytecodes used. So it was not a real, well, like ostensibly, like we used Java 6, but it was the custom bytecode interpreter for the JVM bytecode that would actually run the bots within the custom virtual machine. And that's how we knew, like, did your bot like use more than its allocated execution time frame? So it probably has changed since then, but those were pretty interesting constraints because it turns out if you only get to run like 1,000 JVM bytecodes, like that's actually not a lot, especially without like the modern JIT compilation or anything. You're actually going through every single bytecode. And it forces you to use some like very creative strategies for things that typically you would just call a JVM library, but those JVM libraries can consume like tens to hundreds of thousands of bytecodes just for the initialization in traditional sort of Java inheritance fashion.
Yeah, I remember something around Java 6 or 1.6. And yeah, in 2004, we had what we called the Robo VM, which like users submitted their players as a jar file of bytecodes, and then we would have a VM like written in Java that would execute those bytecodes, and it could know to stop like immediately after the 1,000th bytecode was done. And we had performance problems, and that the following year we actually did an instrumentation approach where we would take your player and then like you know, analyze the bytecodes and look at the blocks of like contiguous instructions, and like at the beginning of a block say like, we know this block is like going to be 1,000 instructions before the next branch, so or like 300 instructions for the next branch, like add 300 to the like, you know, the bytecode count, and then once you get over 1,000. But then in that case it's a lot harder to control memory allocations, because when we had our own VM we would like essentially intercept malloc and or Java's version of malloc, and we could say like, oh well, no, that's going to exceed your heap, your allocated heap. But when we were instrumenting bytecodes, we could usually catch like uncaught exceptions and everything and like blow up your bot, but we never had a great way of handling like the case where you allocated too much memory, because at the time in Java, like out of memory exceptions it wasn't like reliable to be able to catch that because you can get into a place where they don't have enough memory to handle the out of memory exception.
I think there are a few awards given once in a while for JVM escapes too. Like any team
yeah?
that managed to get the escape, like got a small prize for it.
Oh, I love that. I love that.
Yeah, I think the instrumentation code has not changed basically at all since probably back then, although we finally upgraded from Java 8 to Java 21 this year. That was definitely a
Oh shit,
task.
big jump.
Oh, that's huge. Oh wow, that's
Big
a big
jump.
Great work.
But
And so
are
it's
you
still
still doing? Oh, go ahead.
it's still instrumentation.
So instrumentation, and we also did a Python version this year that works the same way with the Python bytecode. We have an
Love
instrument.
that you guys did Python. Thank you.
Yeah.
Is the counting still similar, or the Python, like, because there was Python when we were doing it our year two, but it was through some Python to JVM transpilation, which was expensive.
So we're doing CPython has bytecode, so we just instrument that directly. It's pretty
And
easy.
then you're doing some sort of equivalence between like a JVM bytecode and a CPython instruction.
They're separate right now, but they're like similar enough that we can give similar limits, and they're pretty similar.
I guess for the folks out there that are trying to min-max, there's probably some arbitrage between the two.
Yeah.
There's probably some instruction that'll give you massive increase in computational ability. You are
So if a Java player is playing against a Python player, how do they see the same world data structures?
Okay, so it's experimental this year, so they're not currently like compatible against each other, but that's like a future work to do like cross-language.
So if you're like all the Java players are like in their own league, basically, versus the Python?
Yeah, so we're doing like experimental Python for MIT only essentially this year, just to get people in, try to get
Okay.
that way. Yeah.
Okay, I think we're almost out of time, but we wanted to use the last question to just ask you guys if you had any final words of advice for Battlecode competitors or just like MIT students or like viewers in general. Any words of wisdom from people in Battlecode or just college experiences in general?
I would say have fun. It is so much more important to have fun than like with Battlecode, with whatever. You can't think like, oh, I gotta win, I gotta get a job, I gotta just have fun. And then ironically, if you just focus on having fun, I think those other things are more likely to come to you.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. I think Battlecode was by far the funnest time I personally had at MIT because it was so much fun and engaged me in ways that that like I just didn't get otherwise, and that was the closest to building a startup and a software company that I had. And so, don't feel bad about spending lots of time on it, or if you like it, it can be a very fun thing. So
I will echo the two sentiments. Have fun. I'll also say like Battlecode is while you can work just with your team or be solo, like hang out with the other teams. Like we all know everyone on this panel because the teams shared information with each other. Like yes, they were competitive, but they were also friendly. Like we got a lot of advice from Spencer and Steven, and it was always fun to chat with folks. And it turns out the Battlecode community ends up being quite strong. Like everyone sort of has this shared memory of being in the trenches and writing these really cool bots to fight against each other. So like, don't just be by yourself, or if you're with your team, just be by your team. Like hang out with the other teams, like chat with them. Maybe they'll end up sharing some tidbits or advice.
Big plus one.
The year after our finals, Steven, I think you were there for this. The year after our finals competition, we hosted a kind of after party in one of our dorm rooms. And then one of my teammates, Steve, he ended up having too much to drink. And so he ended up projectile vomiting off of the ceiling and then onto one of the shirts of the other Battlecode developers, Trevor, at that year. And I like felt so fucking bad for Trevor. I was just like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. You did all this work to provide us with an amazing competition and like make it an awesome time and all of that. And my teammate just threw up all over your shirt. He was great about it. It was all cool. So don't throw up on the Battlecode devs. Thanks.
Very good words of advice. Any else? Any like other final remarks?
Oh, Nicole, can I plug my talk?
Yes, wait, I've made a slide for you as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Give me just a second.
Awesome. So just a quick plug. I'm going to be on campus for the Battlecode finals. I think Aaron's going to be here as well. So feel free to come say hi to us at the finals or at the finalist dinner.
Sorry, could you start over? The
Okay,
audio
no problem. No problem. Can you hear me okay? Are we good? Okay. I'll be on campus for the Battlecode finals, the finalist dinner, the finals, as well as Aaron and some other alums from Battlecode. So please don't be shy. Come say hi to us, talk to us. That's why we're there, because we want to hear about this year's competition. I know it's all about painting maps, and so very excited to hear what you guys have been working on and some of the cool things that you're doing. The thing I wanted to plug really quickly is, so the day after the finals on Sunday, February 2nd, I'm going to be giving a talk on career success and called Beating the Ivy League and Career Success. One of the things that always really bothered me while I was at MIT was like, I'm like, man, like all these Ivy Leaguers end up like, taking all these good careers, and like we need to like up MIT's power level on a relative basis. Why is that? And what can I do as an MIT alum to better understand how to be successful? And so it's a question I've been thinking a lot about since graduating from MIT for the last 15 years, and wanted to share some of the interesting lessons I've learned over the years, and just some of the experiences from founding Amplitude and taking it public, as well as all some of the stuff from the Battlecode days. So anyway, would love for you to come by and join the talk. And we'll be hosting a happy hour afterwards as well. So yeah, definitely sign up for that. It'll be good. Would love to say hello and meet all of you.
So, okay. Can we all give a round of applause to our panelists today? Thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to, talk to us. We really appreciate it. And yeah, hope everyone here has a good time competing in Battlecode this month. So yeah, I think that's pretty much it. And I'll
Good
end
luck, everyone.
Thank you to the devs. Thank you guys for putting so much work into setting this up for everyone. You guys are awesome.